Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's been a while, but today I am back and I am here to show you how I made my take on a blood in the water prompt. Now, I did mine a little bit more stylistically with some opaque white and gold flakes, but if you just wanted the classic blue and red blood drip kind of look, the technique here should still work. It's all about personal preference, so just make the dice that you want to make. Let's get into how I did that. I started with my resin sectioned off, a little bit for white, a little bit for red, and then the majority for blue, which I used a sapphire alcohol ink to get started on that translucent blue base. This alcohol ink is really strong, so I just added a little bit at a time until I was happy with the overall color. Then I went off to my opaque white and added some Piñata Blanco Blanco, that is always my white alcohol ink, before mixing that all together as well. Obviously, again, if you want a classic blood in the water without the white, you just wouldn't add it. Then I wanted to zhuzh up my blue base a little bit, so I added some Brea Reese iridescent glitter, because I love me some glitter, and also some of this fake gold flake, which again, if you want a really classic blood in the water look, you could just omit these elements, and if you wanted a completely different look, you could change them into whatever color theme you were going for. So I used this little metal stick to break up that gold flake against the side of my cup there, and my trusty dusty heat gun to pop all of the surface bubbles. And then it's time to get into pouring. Starting with the blue base, I just poured maybe, about a third or a quarter of the way full with my molds. This is just something you kind of have to eyeball. This is going to be the base that we're going to add our red alcohol ink into. So I grabbed my dark red alcohol ink and I had this little cup with resin because we want to go really, really light here. Inks can get overwhelming very quickly, and for my own preference with this style, I wanted the red to be relatively sparse. I actually didn't entirely accomplish that. The D20 that I showed you at the beginning of this video is a little heavier on the red than I would have liked, but dropping a full-on ink drop into these molds would be incredibly overwhelming and you would not get the effect that we're going for. So I tried to show you closer up what I'm doing with these really light ink swirls, and again, I cannot emphasize enough, less is more with this style, and I still have to tell myself that every time I do it. Now I'm going back in with the blue over top that red ink swirl, which is going to help it disperse a bit. And this is also adding a little bit of a separation layer from our next element, which is going to be this opaque white. Again, if you don't want white in your design, simply omit it. But the way I do this is the way I do all of my classic clouds. I am pulling up that opaque white into a pipette, and then I'll be using the pipette to go almost all the way down into my molds, starting to squeeze from the bottom and then swirling around and continuing to squeeze as I pull the pipette up. If you were choosing to omit white from your design, I would just go in with a toothpick and follow that same motion without adding any extra resin. Now it's just about topping off the molds. We've added all of the elements that we're going to add, so I went in with more opaque blue. That's what I'll finish every die off with. And for the dice that needed it, which are particularly the larger dice like my D12s and D20s, I went in with a little bit more red and then a little bit more blue on top of that, just alternating back and forth until I felt like my molds were full and the design was relatively consistent throughout. As always, anytime you see me with this heat gun, what I am doing is degassing the resin, popping all of those little bubbles, and this is what the design looked like from my molds by the time I was finished pouring. I don't know if that helps, but there you go. Then I just pop my caps on and get ready to stick this sucker in my pressure pot. A pressure pot is an extremely helpful piece of equipment which essentially pressurizes down, again, all of those bothersome little bubbles that pop up in resin and make it so that they are essentially indiscernible. So the next day, I pulled my molds out of the pressure pot and began taking the caps off. My molds were a little worn out, so when I pulled this cap off, it actually pulled part of the dye out, so I just decided to take the Gem D6 out early and get a little look at it. My lighting wasn't great, so I didn't bother showing the dye up close, but I was very excited to see that the effect I was attempting here worked out, and went on to demold the rest of the dice. As a little side note, I was hoping to demold these all on camera, but I'm still working on my setup and it was just fighting me every step of the way, so I only got the D4 out on camera. But I figured one die is better than none, and you already saw more of them at the beginning of the video anyway, so I'll take what I can get here. I think that the effect is excellent. The disbursement of the red ink in the blue really drives home that blood in the water look that I was going for. And with that, I hope you liked the dice. I hope you enjoyed the video. Maybe leave a like or subscribe if you did, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye!